PepperSpray Productions is pleased to announce the release of the Leader number 17. Named for that useless bit at the beginning of an old film reel, the Leader is a compilation of activist videos. It is a double release containing 2 DVDs with a total of 16 short pieces. The idea is that when you get a copy, you're supposed to show some or all of it to others as part of building the movement. Over the next while, we will feature selections from the Leader number 17 on this show. Getting the Leader number 17 is like getting a mini film festival in a 2 DVD set. Visit our website, peppersprayproductions.org, for more information.
I like critical mass because it's a celebration of bicycling. It's a way to get out and ride with other people and not have to worry about the cars that are trying to inch up on us. Not having to worry about the cars that are trying to pass us. Not having to worry about cars, really, and getting to enjoy the road with a whole bunch of other cyclists.
I use bikes as my really only source of transportation, so I bike to get around. I ride critical mass because I enjoy riding it.
I mean, it's just fun, and it's a fun way for bikers to come together and to meet each other and share their love of riding bikes, and you just have to try it, and then I'm sure they'd see they would enjoy it.
There doesn't seem to be any leader. It's kind of an anarchist, sort of a political action in the sense they're trying to get their point across about bike riders having the right to be in the road, but also just a lot of people coming together, showing support for bike riders.
Why am I here today? Because I don't own a car. Bicycling is my main form of transportation.
It's got physical exercise and getting out and riding a good bike on a nice day with some friends, huh? Good ride?
Doing this as a group highlights how many bicyclists are out there on the road, and it'll help hopefully get the roads safer.
I'm ready! Who's ready?
But I gotta tell you, I was just on the number 36, and there are a lot of people who weren't so wild about critical mass. I don't know, it doesn't cost me that much time to sit on the bus for a couple of minutes.
I do believe that critical mass is part of a visible bicycle culture that does help to promote further cycling within the city.
Yeah, this is Ozzy, and he's about ready to go on the coolest bike ride today. Ready for a bike ride? Ready. That's my horn. This is my horn right here.
Well, there's been a long history of critical mass ridings not only here but throughout the country. So we're here to basically ensure the safety of the public, and that includes the critical mass riders, the vehicle traffic at large, pedestrians, and the police officers. This critical mass can be an example of the world as it could be. We move hundreds of people down the street in minutes. We have a capacity that's dozens and dozens and dozens of times greater than that of transit or certainly of single occupancy vehicles. And I think that's inspiring to a lot of people. Also, I think it's a strong example of people enjoying the streets, of using the streets the way that they feel they have a right to use them. And I think that can be very empowering for everybody.
This is CNN.
The clash between the driver of this white Subaru and a group of cyclists taking part in a critical mass demonstration played out in a quiet, upscale neighborhood on Capitol Hill.
There's some screaming, yelling, some crunching as he pulled out into the street.
What sparked the confrontation is unclear, but witnesses say they saw about a dozen cyclists surround the car, blocking the driver in. After revving his engine, the driver backed up, hitting at least 2 cyclists, and took off. That's when the cyclists retaliated.
They flattened all 4 tires on his car, damaged both windows, and dented the car. And he ended up having an injury to the back of his head.
There was a giant hole in the back windshield, and then he was getting out, and he had some blood around his neck.
Critical Mass is a group of cyclists who take to the streets the last Friday of every month to promote cyclists' right to the road. Along with the injured driver, witnesses tell us cyclists were also injured in the melee, but some thought the demonstrators took their message way too far.
The rest of us who are standing here, in our cars or sitting, and we can't go anywhere because we're all horrified, scared that if we go around, then maybe they're going to jump on our car too.
There was an incident last month where a car hit several bicyclists on the critical mass ride. He apparently got impatient, didn't want to wait for them to pass. So we covered it at some depth. There was a lot of coverage on talk radio. Some of it really antagonistic towards the bike riders, who felt like they don't follow the rules of the road. They're rude. They're really disruptive.
Last month there was a riot scheduled, and there was what I would consider a significant amount of violence. Anytime the police have to get called.
Last month, a car driver got very impatient and very aggressive, and the mask wasn't operating well. It wasn't tight. It had strung out and wasn't masked up. And the car driver tried to push through the mask, doing some very unsafe maneuvers, ended up running over two cyclists, attempting to flee the scene, and got stopped a block later, where cyclists then did attack the car. But when it made the news, it just made the news as cyclist attack car, not car ran over cyclists.
A lot of the media really focused on bikers attack driver and didn't give the background stories.
Wait a minute, this is really a one-sided account. The police officer arrived after the incident and just thought it was a bunch of bike riders out of hand. But the fact is, bike riders assaulted this guy. He had a gash in the back of his head, had to go to the hospital and get stitches. His car front windshield was smashed, the back windshield was smashed, the tires were slashed. I don't think you can say the bike riders were innocent.
The coverage seems to be largely car-centric, which makes sense because most people in this country and this city do drive cars more of the time than they ride bikes. So they aren't aware of the bicycle perspective as much. It's sad to see, but it makes sense.
Well, it looked to me like the only perspective that was presented was that of the driver.
Well, I think our very first story just reflected what the police account said, which was that a driver had been assaulted and his car had been attacked by bike riders.
Those initial police reports that were released weren't inclusive of everything that happened. And I wasn't present either, but I took it upon myself to speak to over a dozen first-hand witnesses and participants, and I've been working on a legal defense project and on a media correction project. And I've heard from a lot of people, and yeah, I agree that the stories that first emerged weren't too similar to what most of the people who were there seem to have experienced.
And it wasn't until I think about 4 or 5 days later that we had a much more detailed account. First-hand reports from some of the people who were involved in it, and it really raised questions about, whether the car was the aggressor, and a lot of the bike riders felt like, a car's, driving into a bunch of bike riders is really using it as a weapon. So I felt like we had a really, I thought it was a very balanced account.
I don't know, I guess I don't have much expectation of the mainstream media, so I wasn't that shocked. But the story about bikers attacking drivers is a lot more what people want to read and sensational than, than telling nothing or just that a driver hit a biker, which happens all the time.
I think that's consistent with police and media bias against social protest, public demonstration, and cyclists. And it's something that we need to work on in every way we can.
Well, a month ago we had some significant events, and so that's why we've increased our presence. And a lot of it is contingent upon what critical mass, how they're going to operate tonight. We're looking for good faith, want to make sure that we aren't unnecessarily disrupting the movements of the city. Everybody has a right to get to places.
I guess as a biker, I feel like I'm pretty threatened every day when I'm out on the road with other cars, and so this is the one time where I feel really safe, and I love being in a a mass of bikes. It's a great feeling. And when you hear nothing but bike chains and you don't hear cars and car horns, it's pretty exhilarating. I like completely taking over the road, and I enjoy making cars sit and wait for the cyclists.
I don't think it's a particularly effective political action, but I don't think it's an ineffective one either. I think it's more of a fun thing that we do, and I think for new bikers it's a time when they can feel comfortable on the road. Well, they often do not feel comfortable normally if they're not surrounded by a critical mass of bicycles.
What I'd like fellow Seattleites to realize about critical mass is that we're not a crazed mob intent on destroying the city. We're using the streets in a way that is in fact perfectly valid for transportation and simultaneously for expression. And I believe that we all have a right to do that. Critical mass isn't about hurting anyone else's commute during the day. It's not about injuring the other people that we encounter on the road. It's about inspiring and modeling another way to use the road, a way that's people-centered, a way that centers the idea of streets for people rather than streets for cars. I hope that people don't see that as an attack on their lifestyles or on them.
It depends on who your audience is. Like if your audience is the average person who doesn't really understand biking too much and doesn't understand, whether to be frightened of bikes or not, like this guy trying to walk in the middle of them, it scares a lot of people. And I don't know quite how to use critical mass to get beyond the folks that it scares and to use it to just say, yeah, you know what? Bicycles are here, they're going to keep growing, there's going to be more of them, and we got to figure out how to use the roadway smarter. It's not just cars.
The more people that get out there on bicyclists, the more chance that drivers and cars are actually going to start seeing us. That's really important.
When we're out here as a group, I see a lot of people that look like they wish they were joining us, and like wish that they were on bikes. And I think a lot of the hostility or anger that comes from cars is their frustration that they are stuck inside their cars while we're out enjoying ourselves.
We're people too. Just like inside of every car there's a person trying to get out, every cyclist that you see is somebody's son, daughter, mother, father, co-worker. And the people who come to critical mass aren't part of any specific organization. They're participating in a tradition that is celebrating, not attacking.
It's important to get on our bikes because it's actually a really fun way to travel. I get to where I'm going on my bike and I feel really good because I'm pumped up and I'm excited.
Channel with rhythm and information. Internet connect, network, private stations, media free, underground communication. Underground communication.
We don't want to fight anymore, but if we have to fight again, it'll be to take these steps.
As we stand against the war, we also stand behind those who resist it.
More and more U.S. service members are actively refusing to participate in the illegal, immoral invasion and occupation of Iraq.
No more. We have a different path to take, and it doesn't matter what they do to us. It doesn't matter if they take away our honorable discharge, if they put us in prison.
Call it peace or call it treason, call it love or call it reason, but I ain't marching anymore. I ain't marching anymore.
And I firmly believe that, we hold first-hand accounts of what's happened, so there's a level of credibility there that I think is in direct contradiction to, what some of the people who normally speak about the war say, which is elected officials and, pundits. So we bring that kind of credibility to the war. To this.
What are the kinds of projects that IBEW is working on and that people can get involved in?
One of them is Truth in Recruiting, and saying that basically informing teenagers about their rights we want it to be a truthful recruiting process. We don't do counter recruitment, and you could kind of say that's what it is. But we want recruiters to tell the truth. We don't let kids know what exactly they're getting into. That's one of the campaigns, and we're always working on to end the war. Back in March, we held Winter Soldier, which is the 13th through the 16th, and from Winter Soldier, it was Iraqi or vets from Iraq and Afghanistan giving a first-hand testimony about atrocities that they had seen in Iraq, and from there they did Winter Soldier on the Hill, and it was seen before Congress people. So the next step is logically to get that under oath. So actively trying to end the war, actively encouraging GIs to resist. So there's lots of GI resistance campaigns.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And what is the best way, do you think, to end the war? What are we doing to end the war?
I think people need to get out in the streets. I mean, I think it has to be a real movement. I don't think one thing is going to end the war. As we saw in 2006, politicians are not going to end the war. And if you look at the trajectory and you look at, just look at that embassy that was built. It's the largest embassy in the world. Obama, the anti-war candidate, says he's going to leave 50,000 troops. They have to protect the embassy. You need at least 10,000 soldiers to protect that at all times. So you have to question, why we're really there. And so I don't think it's going to happen from politicians. It can't happen just by, people lobbying to end the war. That's not the answer. GIs have to stop fighting the war. That's how it ends. And they need the support. They need to see people in the streets that are supporting them, so that when they actually resist and when they go AWOL, that the people are there for them.
We just want to tell what our 3 points of unity are, and that is to immediate withdrawal of all occupied forces from Iraq, make reparations to the Iraqi people for the destruction that we've caused in their country, and also to have full benefits, mental and physical, for all veterans returning overseas without questions, no appeals.
Do you have any opinions about the war in Afghanistan?
I'm starting to think that that's a big scam as well. If you start to look at at what kind of oil pipeline is going on, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes things. My experience was that I was a welder, and I armor plated. Not by myself, but with a good team of welders and a good support, other good soldiers that I worked with. And I'm very proud of the work that we did. And we armor plated many vehicles, and we saved a lot of soldiers' lives. But the war was kind of questionable. When I got back, I really researched what was going on, and I found that it just seemed like there were a lot of lies and a lot of obscurities. So that's why I'm questioning it now.
Yes, I'm out here today continuing to fulfill my oath as a Marine. I'm here for those who wish they could stand here with us. We're marching today to the Convention Center to deliver a letter to the Democratic National Convention asking that they stop continuing to fund the occupation of Iraq.
Could you tell me a little bit about your experience in Iraq and how it led you to be a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War?
Yes, in the continued war on terror, as it's called, the Iraqi people will do what the American people would do under occupation. They will resist occupation ad infinitum. If we have truly afforded them freedom and democracy, then it's time to do what the Iraqi people ask and leave their country.
I'm here today to, like the rest of us, I guess, to send a message to Senator Obama that we want to end this war, and we want to hold the Democrats and him accountable if he is the Democratic nominee for what they say they want to do, which is end the Iraq War.
Yeah, could you tell me what it was about your experience in Iraq that led you to turn against the war?
It was not being able to do really anything that I thought was good there. All I really did was drive around the country, using up fuel and delivering supplies, military supplies, along with food and water for soldiers. which is not a bad thing in and of itself, but I would have also liked to have been delivering supplies to Iraqis that needed them very badly. I was told not to even throw an MRE out of my truck to Iraqis because the reasoning was we didn't want to hurt anybody with our trucks. But I have a feeling it was not the real reason. They weren't concerned about Iraqi children's safety. They just didn't want to give away anything.
How do you think the Iraqi people feel about our troops being there?
I'm pretty sure they're extremely tired of it by now, if they're still alive. I mean, estimates say that there's over 1 million, or half a million dead, I believe. Some of the estimates, refugees, well over 1 million. And so I'm sure unless they're part of this government that's, in my mind, sort of a puppet government, then they're not happy at all.
Peace is what we're marching for.
GDLS, General Dynamics Land Systems, makes money off of every striker that gets destroyed. We could see that every time we an IED even superficially hurt a striker, the military has to buy more parts for those strikers, and it's so blatant over there. Everything on the FOB, the forward operating base, says property of Kellogg, Brown and Root on it, and it's just there's no veil of legitimacy over there. It's quite obvious that to everyone that's there that there's people who are making amazing amounts of money on this war, and that's what it's all about. I joined the Army knowing that we were going to go to war with Iraq. It was pretty obvious at that point. But I was against the war, and I was open about those views all throughout the time I was in the military. There were definitely a lot more people questioning why we're in Iraq, and a lot more people started coming around and realizing that this is a symptom of a much larger problem. This paternalist government that we live under is that this war is just a symptom of that.
I was a sergeant in the United States Army. I got to Iraq in 2004. My second day in combat, I was put in the turret of an up-armored Humvee and given a machine gun and told to protect my team. And as I stand here today and look at all of you, if you were in Iraq, I would have pointed weapons at you too. And there's nothing more that I would love to do than go back to Iraq and tell those families that I pointed my machine gun and my rifle and my pistol at, that I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm the nightmare for their children. I'm sorry that I bred hate for my country. And I wish nothing more for them to know that I love them and I'm sorry.
I am Sergeant Matthew Chereau, Individual Ready Reserve, U.S. Army. June 15th of this year, I refused to deploy to Iraq. The occupation of Iraq is illegal, unconstitutional, and is a war of aggression as defined by the Geneva Conventions, the Nuremberg Principles, and the UN Charter, which was violated when we invaded, inherently violating Article 6, Section 2 of our U.S. Constitution. This is unacceptable, as I am sworn to protect and defend my Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Our enemies are at home, ladies and gentlemen. They are here. They will kill this country with apathy, with selfishness, with greed, with materialism. We stand here in defense of the Constitution. We stand here in defense of the rule of law. We stand here in defense of our brothers and sisters who have had their services abused so deeply by the highest leaders in this land. This is unacceptable. Not by my hands will I provide, not by my hands will I take another's life who never did anything to this country in the first place. In 2006, 90% of U.S. soldiers and service members in Iraq believed that the war was the result of Saddam Hussein's involvement in September 11th, 2001. We know this to be false. We need to take this message to the service member and make them understand this war is a fraud of American military might. Let us never stand by in apathy while our rights are stripped and lives are taken overseas. Thank you.
There's a killer in your neighborhood eating teenagers. In the slaughterhouse, they call this creature the Judas goat. A Judas goat is trained to lead the other animals around the stockyards, ultimately to their death at the hands of the butcher. At the last minute, the Judas goat is taken out of the killing pen and returned to the yard to lead yet another set of unsuspecting animals to their death. So long as that Judas goat can lead the others to their slaughter, he is spared the knife himself. The military recruiter is a human Judas goat. As long as he fills his monthly quota of young bodies, he doesn't have to go to war himself. His victims die that he may live a self-indulgent lifestyle. To meet his quota, a recruiter paints false dreams of glory and adventure to innocent youth. He will often resort to bullying, harassment, manipulation, phony calls to patriotism and duty, or suggestions that only those with military service attain real manhood. It is time to unmask these bloodsuckers and rid our communities of them. Have some fun. Save a life. Get the recruiters off campus now.